lead me on.
We've got you covered. CCFM is everywhere.
Chandler Moore there with Lead Me On. It's now time for me to introduce our first guest for the den. Stephen Walker joins us via StreamYard so that we can see each other, we can capture this on YouTube, and also definitely have a great conversation. Stephen, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's great to be connected to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much.
So, Stephen, let's just unpack it a little bit. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to mention it again just to capture it on this video. You are an actuary by profession. You
That's
are
right.
also the father of 2 adult autistic children, and you yourself are on the autism spectrum. So thank you so much for being willing to talk about this whole thing of being a dad of children on the autism spectrum. But let's unpack this a little bit. Maybe start at the beginning with your own diagnosis, if you don't mind, where and when and how it all came to be.
Okay, thanks very much. So my diagnosis was, from my perspective, a bit of a joke because I was 28 years old. My son was born when I was 26. As first-time parents, we were concerned about our child, and everybody kept telling us, oh, no, you're first-time parents. You don't know what you're talking about. Just let the child be. And we had concerns. And it was only when we were spoken to by the parent of an autistic child who looked at our son and said, I think he's autistic. And then we took him to see a pediatric neurologist here in Cape Town. And then we go there and we're having this conversation. I say we, so we're having this conversation with a pediatric neurologist, which means my wife is doing all the talking because my wife is a warm, bubbly person and she's doing all the talking. And when she's around, I don't talk. Why must I talk? I outsource it to her. So I let her do all the talking. So we're having this long assessment. The doctor's watching our son. He was very young at the time. He was a year and a half, 2 years old, was thereabouts. And so at the end of the session, my wife points to me and says, what about him? Because the doctor has now confirmed, yes, our son is autistic. So she points to me and says, what about him? And the doctor says, yeah, him too. And so that was it. And it was something that I just thought was ridiculous at the time. I'm in a very, very competitive industry. Like I said, I was 28 years old. I qualified as an actuary just before my son was born. And so now you're in this cutthroat industry where you can't show weakness. You have to be strong. Especially, this is what you think. This is what you tell yourself now in your 20s also. So I just rejected it. I just said, that's nonsense. It doesn't apply. It took me a long time to become comfortable with the fact that that's just what it is. Like my wife will say continuously that she's been with me for a long time. So she's met a heck of a lot of actuarial folk. And she will say at least 50% of the people that she's ever met in the actuarial profession are autistic. And that's just how it is. That's just how we are. We're a different eccentric bunch. So before I became a qualified actuary, I was seen as strange and weird. When you become a qualified actuary, the luxury that I have is now I'm just seen as eccentric. So I can get away with things. I can get away with being seen as strange. Oh, it's okay. He's fine. He's an actuary. They're just like that. Actually, I was like that long before I became an actuary, but that's a separate issue.
Sure.
So for me, it's a luxury, my profession, because we're expected to be weirdos to a certain extent, to a limited extent, let me emphasize.
Stephen, thank you for sharing so boldly and just so honestly. Love it to bits. Let's just quickly talk before we go further on your journey. Talk about autism, because there's a lot of mythical and misinformation about autism. And I'm not speaking to you because you're an expert on autism, but I'm speaking to you about it because you have been diagnosed as autistic, or on the spectrum, I should say, sorry. And I am the father also of an autistic child, and it looks very different. One of the things that I keep on saying to people is, once you've met an autistic person, you have met one autistic person or one person on the spectrum. And just talk to us so that we can help everybody that's watching or listening to us.
Now, I think that's a very valid point, that it is a wide spectrum. So we have 2 autistic children. They're completely different individuals. So like I said, my wife has to live with 3 of us. So 3 different challenging autistic people, but we're all different. I always say I'm the oatster and stotester of the people that she has to look after in the family. So literally we all have our own challenges. So there's social skills and developmental issues, etc., etc. So yes, we come with our own mixed match of challenges, but like you say, each and every one of them is different. And so you have to make the effort to seek, what's going to work for this individual. We don't fit perfectly well into society at large. We don't do terribly well. Just this past week, I was in Johannesburg for a dinner, and I was feeling very autistic. Wednesday night, I was feeling very autistic when I'm tired, and because November is always a rough month, and then the more tired I get, the more autistic I get. Like the more challenging I am, the more challenging it is for me to now have to be able to operate in this normal society where everybody else is sitting and drinking and chatting and blah, blah, blah. And wow, I was struggling this week.
Sure. That's good. And this is the beautiful thing as well, is as much as there are challenges, there are also superpowers. And that often diagnosis of somebody being on the autism spectrum can also go hand in hand with things like ADHD or ADD or other complications and things like that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's get back into it a little bit. And as a parent, and you touched on it already, we understand, of course, that there are daily challenges that we as parents face. What were some of the challenges that you and your wife specifically faced in this process of seeing your children growing up? And how did you overcome some of those challenges for yourself as well as for your children?
Yeah, so one of the thoughts I want to share is that originally we were told we're not going to have children. We got married and my wife was having health issues, and we go to the doctor and the doctor says, nah, the chances of you ever having children is like slim to zero. So it's unlikely to happen. So you cry about it and you pray about it and you beg the Lord, but we want to be parents one day. We want to have children. And then the miracle happens and you receive these children. You can't then turn around and say to God, no, that's not what I had in mind. This is, whoa, be careful what you pray for. You might just get it. I received this wonderful blessing, but it's not quite what I had in mind. I didn't know it's going to come with these challenges. You have to accept it. My wife will always say to me, you wanted to be a father? Yeah, you were a father. Deal with the situation. So it has been challenging. And I think one of the big mistakes we realize after this, my son is 22. And when we think back to that time period when he was a year and a half, and now we're stressing about his development and we're worrying about him and we're trying to do the best thing. And then you get this diagnosis. This was back in 2003. So if you think people aren't aware of it now, you can't imagine how ignorant people were about this issue back in 2003. So then we were searching for solutions for him. So we're trying different things, and you have to try and invent the wheel, not even reinvent the wheel. You're trying to invent the wheel because there's so little out there. You're trying to find the right place. It was a challenge. And I think the biggest regret we have is that we didn't enjoy our children. When they were small, you look back at the photos now and you think, good grief, the child was so beautiful. He was so innocent. And we were stressing. We were always like, no, you must try and achieve this, and what's going to happen and what's going to become of him, etc. Part of the challenge of being the parent of an autistic child is to let go of your preconceived notions of how this is going to work out. So I remember holding my little baby boy in my arms and telling him that it's going to be me and him against the world. We're going to achieve these massive things and build businesses and take on the big wide world. I had all these dreams and aspirations, which weren't his dreams and aspirations. If things aren't meant to be, they're not meant to be. So you need to let go. So that as the parents of autistic children, you go through this mourning phase where you're now grieving because you have all these dreams. You realize that's not meant to be. It's not what God intended, and you have to let go. And the problem for the child is that the child is sitting there needing your support, and you're going through this grieving process. So you need to get over this because you actually have to help your child. So I think those are some of the lessons I've learned now that I can look back after 22 years, that it is a challenge, it is a struggle, but you still need to love this child. This child is still a gift from God that you must appreciate, that you must do everything you can for this child. And as parents, we sacrifice. I always say, as a parent, we will do anything. We will give everything for our child. So you need to do that. You need to focus on that, while at the same time actually loving your child in this sweet, innocent way, just the joy of being a parent.
Sure. That is so on point. Thank you, Stephen. If you're just tuned in to CCFM, good afternoon. My name's Jonathan Haller. I'm joined via StreamYard to Stephen Walker. He is a dad of 2 adult autistic or children on the autism spectrum, and he himself has been diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. And we're talking in the den. This is a safe space for men to tune in, to listen, to learn, and most importantly, for us to be encouraged and grow. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen. As we move on, then, want to just kind of get a little bit deeper into that. And I think this is one of the things first that I want to just take away from what you just shared, that thing of enjoying your little child when they are little. I so often wish that somebody had grabbed my attention 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and said, hey, enjoy them while they're young. Time flies by so fast. You're gonna, you don't get those times back, and it's not just for children who are special needs. It's for anybody, for any child. Really, it is. So,
For the
Stephen,
young people listening, time flies. You've got to make use of the time because, wow, just the other day I was leaving school. No, that was 30 years ago. I had a 30-year high school reunion now. That was 30 years ago. But for me, it feels like it was a year ago. Time flies.
Exactly. It does. It definitely does. So, Stephen, tell us about your own childhood. Thing of being not diagnosed. And again, as you said, 2003, autism was a little known thing. I know that there were many children in my school career that they were just labeled as naughty. But then later you think, oh, maybe that's ADHD, myself included, But talk to us a little bit about your own personal journey.
Now, I mean, school for me, I will always say that school was the worst period of my life, high school specifically. I hated high school with an intense passion. And the reason why, because you never feel that you fit in. But I mean, obviously a lot of people go through that. So for me, I was a nerd. I was at school. I was hated. You go there every day feeling hated and loathed by society at large, just being your fellow children, because children, especially teenagers are growing up where they're trying to find themselves in the world, and you're uncomfortable in your own skin still. So the best defense is an offense. So that's what you do. You look for the weakest one in the group, the one that stands out because he's a bit abnormal looking or abnormally behaving, and you attack that person brutally. So you attack that person because by putting the attention on that person, then it takes away from yourself and your own feelings of strangeness while you're going through life as a teenager. So that was one of the personal joys I remember of my years at high school. I can laugh about it now because it's 30 years later. But, actually, when I think about the fact that with my children, they've never been in a mainstream school, any sort of long-term arrangement here in South Africa. We lived in the UK for a few years. My daughter was in mainstream school there for a few years. But one of the things I'm glad about is that they missed high school. I think high school is just difficult. It's so difficult. I worry this time of year about the matrics. You always worry about these matrics where they get so worked up that some of them commit suicide because of all this pressure put on them. It's got nothing to do with autism, like you'll say. It's just a difficult time. So it just piles it on. Years ago, my mother, I remember her saying to my wife that she had a feeling that I was different when I was young, but she didn't want to take me somewhere to get this official label because she was worried that the label would then be held against me to say, oh no, this one's different, he's got a problem, etc., etc. I was like doing well in school, so just deal with it. I think at that time was probably the right thing for me not to have this label because I just carried on. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, sure. That's fantastic. Well, Stephen, then let's delve into the fact that you've got Emily and David. They have been diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum. What does life look like for you guys? How have you navigated it? They're adults now, young adults. But you shared earlier about, when you were trying to find answers and so forth. But now you've come to peace with it, is the sense that I get.
Yeah, you learn to accept that this is the way life is. So, I mean, it's a continuous challenge with our son, especially because he's nonverbal. He can't speak. He can't express himself. It was when he was young. I mean, when I say young, I mean tiny, when he was a year and a half and he started speaking. And then you watch that regression where he lost everything. And then it was like, good grief, what happened? Why did this happen? And he's never been able to speak. He struggles to control his body. So he will bounce around. You're trying to talk to him, you're trying to read things to him, and he doesn't seem to be listening. He doesn't seem to be taking anything in. So there's nothing going on. He's basically brain dead. He's just bouncing around. You as the parent, especially me as a father, I can't help it. I have to fight against these thoughts. And it was only a few years ago where we first started realizing, but there's more going on here than what we understand. Where we saw YouTube videos from overseas where this young lady in a similar situation, she was able to type out on a keyboard. So just because she's struggling to control her body doesn't mean that there's nothing going on in her head. So now with our son, my wife is especially passionate about this. So he spells out, he types things on a keyboard, on this big fancy stencil that they've got. It takes a huge amount of loving patience from my wife for him to be able to communicate, but now he can communicate. So it's taken us a long time to realize that this is actually our son who's got something to say, that he has a will, he has his own likes and desires and hopes and dreams that he wants to express. Getting him to express them allowing him to express those dreams, hopes, and desires and fear is extremely challenging, but it is worth it just for him to have that opportunity. Finally, as like I say, it happened a few years ago when he was a teenager that we finally gave him this opportunity to talk. And so I just shudder. I shudder completely when I think about how many other young people in similar situation, they're just stuck in a corner and just ignored and just said, as long as he's cleaned and fed and is alive, then that's what we do for him as a society, and that's enough. And it's not enough. We need to do more. I had a small taste of this, I must share, when I had a stroke 4 years ago. So I'm in this house, and then I collapsed on, and I had that for about 30 minutes. I had that experience where I'm locked in. I can hear everything that's going on around me. I can understand everything that's going on around me, but I can't control my body, and I can't express myself. I can't talk. So for a half an hour, I went through that, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And then the worst thing that I realized when I came out of the stroke was, this is what my son has been going through for all these years. And it was just breathtakingly horrible, is what I can say.
Yeah. That is so meaningful to me. That really is, because just earlier today, I was having a conversation with somebody and just saying, I've got no idea what my daughter is going through. Her brain does not function like my brain. Her body doesn't react the way that my body reacts. So I've got no idea, but yet I love her and I need to be there for her. But it's difficult at times. It really is difficult.
Yes.
How have you and your wife handled the challenges that come with being parents of autistic children?
It's a struggle. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to anyone and tell them that it's easy. It's a struggle of a challenge of love that you keep doing. I always say, if something's worthwhile, it's going to take a huge amount of effort, and you've got to do it. So whether it's trying to work for a qualification or trying to raise your child in a loving way when the child is born with challenges, you do that. You commit to it and you do it. So in my church, I'm the marriage officer, and I try and give the young people that speech also, because it's marriage. You're making commitment before God. You commit to it and you stick to it. It doesn't matter what comes at you. You commit to it every single day. So you have to remind yourself about it. This is your commitment, and you're going to stick to it. I think in modern times, a lot of people will run away. And it is horrifying for me also that many of the couples that we see, they break up, they go through divorce because of the challenges, the strains on them from having this child. And it tends to be the men that disappear. Like, I didn't sign up for this. Hey, like, whoa, this child came out of your body. I'm out of here. Which obviously I do not look upon very fondly, because that's your child. You fight for that child. You are there for that child. You support that child. So it's just love and commitment, I think, is the best answer. Perseverance, huge amounts of perseverance and love.
Exactly. And to have a community of people, even if it's just a community of 2 people that are there to help you, right?
Yes, I mean, we're blessed with family members that also are around us, that support us, that help and look after us. You can be crazy with family, you know them. Also, it helps, like in our church, for example. What's funny for me is that we've been going to the same church for so many years. They know my son. So when my son jumps up in the middle of a service, busy making noise and bouncing up and down, no one turns around because it's David. David's been doing that for more than 20 years. They're used to David. It's nothing. So that's why I'm like, we're never going to another church, because this church has been trained. These people are well, and they've graduated from their training academy. So we're not going somewhere else. We're staying in this church because they're used to this.
That's it. I want to drill down just a little bit, if you don't mind, Stephen, with regard to the fact that marriages don't last. And you said it, and I love the fact that you said it so boldly. You said, that there are men that run because they don't know. So being a safe space, the den, how do we as men help each other, maybe even hold each other to account, but also say, come on, this might be the hardest fight of your life, but you can be part of the solution. You can be a part of this family. And you know what? God is going to help you, and there are going to be others that come around you and help you as well.
No, I think that's it completely. So I'm going to do some advertising, not really. So my wife has started this organization called Autism So What. So she's very committed to supporting the parents of autistic children, especially, like I say, with the nonverbal children, trying to find a way to express themselves, while her two brothers have started their own little organization called Saint Gentlemen, doing exactly what you're describing, giving men this opportunity to talk and just vent, just talk about the issues and then give positive feedback. You can do this, stick it out. We all go through tough times. I remember at university, because I'm doing this very, very tough qualification, for the first year and a half, I spoke to no one. My theory was, like most people who take up actuarial studies fall out. They drop out because they can't handle it. So my theory was, if I talk to no one, if nobody knows me, then if I drop out, no one will notice. So for almost 2 years, I spoke to no one. And now you're going through this massive challenge, and it's like you're struggling and you want to pull your hair out and you're crying about this. And then after a year and a half, I was like, oh, I'm still around. I haven't dropped out. So let me start speaking to people. And it's only then when you realize everybody else is going through the same thing you're going through, Stephen. And it helped me so much just knowing that I'm not actually alone. So I've been punishing myself for almost 2 years needlessly. So I think what you're describing is exactly the same thing that if my brothers-in-law were here, they'd be talking about this too, that we as men need to be able to openly talk about, I'm going through a tough time. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. To hear other men say, yes, I also struggle with things, and this is how I do it. This is how I deal with it. I think it does help also when you hear that other people have gone through challenges and have overcome the challenges through what means is necessary. So we as men, we tend to know, I mustn't cry, I must be strong, I must bottle things up, I must just take it on the chin, and then when I can't anymore, then boom, I'm gone, bye-bye. It's rather stick around and just talk about the issues that you're having and get some support. We'll pray for you, we'll also give you the life experience of what we've been through, and hopefully that can help you.
Yeah. There's so much more that we could talk about, but time is not on our side. This has been amazing.
When I get going, I can talk for hours. So I'm warning you now.
I fully understand. People say the same thing about me. Don't feel bad, Stephen. This has been so helpful. Just want to highlight, you can connect with Autism So What through Facebook, right?
That's right.
That's probably the easiest. So just go to facebook.com and then go to Autism So What. But really, really so on point. Stephen, thank you for sharing. I really hope that men and women will say, you know what, we can do this. We can fight together. We can stand strong. And come what may, we're going to trust God. And we're going to, come what may, we're going to stick to our spouse, our life partner, that person that we've said till death do us part. We got to stick it through, right?
Yeah. Amen to that. One of my favorite quotes is from Winston Churchill. So he was always my hero when I was growing up. Late in life, you realize this guy wasn't perfect, but hey, none of us are perfect. One of my favorite sayings is from Churchill when he said, if you find yourself going through hell, keep going. Don't stop, persevere, be strong, keep the faith. So all these good things, yes. So to everyone out there, I wish them all the best, much strength. God bless.
Sure. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been really, really great. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We've been chatting to Stephen, and just a beautiful conversation about the whole thing of autism. Being a parent of 2 autistic children is Stephen, he himself on the spectrum. But thank you so much for your time, sir, and really, really appreciate the honest conversations that we could have. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye.